Welcome to the Child Free Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners. We've talked about sabbaticals and taking time in this kind of file approach and like, how do you balance your life, and whether it's a phased retirement or mini retirements or whatever. So I thought there was no one better to bring on than Jillian Johnsrud, who's talking about retiring often and really this question about like, how do you create a life where you are living in your seasons of life and taking time to recharge, to restart, to do whatever it is across your life. Because you know that's probably the better way to live, but it's got its own challenges. So Jillian, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Let's start. Why did you write this book?
I think I was motivated. I mean, writing a book is such a daunting task, but there's so few things in life that have such a high impact on people's lives. And mini retirements can be life-changing. And it's so exciting to me to think that, people are going to go out and they're going to do them. Like I'm excited about the book in that it's not just inspirational. Like it doesn't just like kind of inspire people. It really gives you kind of every step, every tool you need to make it happen. And I'm just excited, like, in 40 years, when people are maybe 80, these mini retirements are the things that they're going to look back on their life and be the highlights of their life.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about kind of challenging the standard life script of what it says you must do. And one of those things is you got to work 25 years, get the watch, and retire. And I just don't see that anymore. Like, I mean, it's, first of all, companies are not loyal to you, so that's a whole separate discussion. But this idea that I'm just going to bust my butt for decades and then retire and quote unquote be happy, I don't know that works.
The economy and how we approach it is massively different than it was 30 years, but definitely versus 50 or 60 years ago. And the reality is, I think this is the path forward. I think people taking a little career breaks, whether they negotiate them off or just planning like, hey, every 3 to 5 years, I'm going to switch employers because that's kind of what we need to do now to be like compensated kind of fairly to our skill set often. And I'll just take a break in between. Maybe I'll take a month off. Maybe I'll take 3 months. I'll take 6 months off. And I think that's going to become more and more the norm of if I frequently take these breaks, if I lean into this current season of life, not only will life be better, but I might actually get more enjoyable working years on the end.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. I highly encourage you to schedule a Child Free Wealth checkup. During this time, you're going to get a couple of forms to fill out that include your life and financial plan. We'll review them, and then we're going to have a meeting and go through them with you. We're going to give you some advice and things to work on and talk through things to make your finances simpler so your life can be amazing. You can schedule yours by going to our website, childfreewealth.com, and clicking the Schedule Now button.
And you talk about in the book about like the different type of breaks, whether somebody calls it sabbatical or a gap year or new retirement. Does that matter what you call it and like how you do it?
No, I think whatever name resonates with you, whichever one feels good or comfortable. I define mini retirements by 3 things. It's a month or longer. I find a month is kind of the minimum effective dose. Stepping away from your primary profession. So it doesn't mean you don't do anything else. Like a lot of people volunteer or do kind of side hustles or explore different career options during a mini retirement. And then the third one is to focus on something that's meaningful to you. And if you get those 3 elements, it can be amazing.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's kind of like a balancing act. We tend to recommend sabbaticals consider pretty regularly. And to me, that's more like a 6-month kind of step away where you're refocusing, going a different direction, which may be slightly different than kind of that mini retirement. Or, I mean, do you see it as different? I mean, I don't know.
In my kind of understanding and definition of mini retirement, it's like a Swiss Army knife. It is a tool that has many different functions. So I've seen people use longer ones more in that sabbatical sense of I'm going to focus on other professional goals. I've seen people go back to school or do certifications or do career pivots or work on big projects that they just didn't have space for during their 9 to 5. And on the other side, I've seen people do amazing adventures and travel around the world or focus on their health or focus on their hobbies or their relationships. You can use this in so many different ways.
Is this kind of just like a YOLO type approach to life? Because I get some people pushing back on me when I talk about living early. They're like, you're just throwing caution to the wind.
I am definitely not a throwing caution to the wind kind of person. In the book, I really try to show this isn't just adding vacations to your life. You can be really strategic about it. And a lot of people use these to actually increase their, like the speed at which they get to financial independence and to improve their career trajectory. Like it sounds counterintuitive, but you can be really strategic with these in creating an overall rich, abundant life, rich in experiences, but also financially rich and professionally rich.
Yeah, and we call it, how do you simplify your finances so your life can be amazing? And I'm with you. All right, talk to me about like how this would help you financially. Because I can kind of see it, but I don't know.
It is really counterintuitive because you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to not be working, so I'm not earning money, and maybe I'm spending more money. Like, how does that make me richer? But there's a couple factors at play. One, like I mentioned, when you switch jobs, you probably have the best chance of a substantial raise versus staying at the same company. So I had one friend who took year-long mini retirement, and when he came back, he received at his new job, it was a 50% pay increase. Now, the reason that happened is that he had been at the previous company for 15 years. So he had been underpaid for a long time. He was not receiving his fair market value. So for like kind of number geeks, if we think about this, okay, if he was there 15 years, let's say he was making 100,000. So he came back at 150. Maybe 8 of those years he was underpaid. So that's $400,000 that he was underpaid. Even let's say the year off cost 100,000, he's still out 300,000. That if when he was 40 had that invested, he would have been $1 million richer by frequently taking these breaks, adding these sabbaticals, adding these mini retirements. You can massively increase your lifetime earning potential to make sure that you're receiving fair market value. So it's a really strategic approach. Like, hey, I want this great life, but I also want to increase my lifetime earning potential by making sure I'm always at fair market value. And mini retirements are a great way to do that. So that's one way it really helps. The other side is that for people who, especially are earlier in their financial journey, you can really think about these as wealth building opportunities. So they don't all have to be like cool around the world trips and vacations. Actually, the house that I'm in, me and my spouse at the time, we took a month off and we bought this house as a rental. And we had to take a month off of work because we had to do some renovations. And I think there's a lot of people who are like, I would like to buy rentals, but I don't really have the time. I don't have the energy. Well, we took a month off work to do it. And there again, because I'm kind of a numbers geek, we paid $100,000 for it. We put about another $100,000 in it altogether up until this point. So we're like $200,000 and it is now worth $500,000. So a month off a decade ago, and we're $300,000 richer for it. And so I know people who start side hustles, they start businesses. Like if you're early in your journey, this could be the opportunity when you have that, you listen to a podcast and you're like, oh, that's such a cool idea. If I only had like the time or the energy or the space in my life to do that thing, maybe take a mini retirement and give it a go.
Well, and I think part of the challenge is we get so wrapped up in kind of running the rat race or, on the treadmill or whatever else it is that we don't have time to think differently. Where like if you take a month, and we'll use that as time because some people take a little more or some less, whatever it is, but you take a little bit of time and you're like, what do I actually want out of my life? I always ask my clients to kind of, what do you want to be to grow up? Kind of what does that look like? And most people never get the chance to stop and think about it because like, they're just got to go. Like, hey, I got another job offer somewhere, which is great. You can go up in salary, but like, what would happen if you took just a little time in between for yourself and use that to kind of reconnect with yourself?
I had the best conversation with a friend yesterday. She just came back from 2 years off and she was like, oh my gosh, Jillian, you say this all the time. And I thought, well, this doesn't apply to me. This isn't applicable to me. Like, I get that maybe this works for other people, but she got, her quote unquote dream job offer. And she was like, I never thought I would get a job better. I was my business owner. Like, I never thought I would earn more money. She negotiated like a month off every year, negotiate this great work-life balance, like this incredible thing. She's like, I didn't think that was humanly possible. And the metaphor I use is that, because I live in Montana, where it's very foresty here. Like, I live in the mountains. So if the whole forest burns down, within a year or two, you get all of this new growth because there's no competition. There's no competition for sunlight or for water or for resources. And this new growth comes in this amazing way where if you tried to plant a tree in an existing established forest, it's hard because there's not a lot of sunlight. There's not a lot of extra water. It's competing with all these other things. Sometimes to have that new, excited, amazing growth and opportunities, you got to clear out the forest. Like, it's just not going to happen in the middle of your busy job, of your busy career, of all the demands on your life. Like, you're not going to grow something new and exciting because there's just not enough resources to fuel that kind of growth. And so sometimes mini retirements are kind of burn the forest down and you start fresh and really amazing things can happen.
But how about the people that actually like their job and want to stay there? So this is that question, like, can I take a month off my existing stuff, then come back, recharge, whatever? Because you're talking about a lot of examples of like, yeah, I'm going somewhere other the path and going a different direction, burning down the forest. But what if you want to keep it?
Yeah. So there's 3 ways you can get a mini retirement. The first one is to negotiate it off. The second is in between jobs, whether you switch careers or not. And then the third is like, sometimes life is unexpected and weird things happen and you suddenly don't have to be at work. Usually bad things, but occasionally good things. If you love your job, if you love your employer, especially if you want a mini retirement between 1 and 3 months, that's kind of the sweet spot, mostly for the logistics of HR. So HR is used to giving people up to 12 weeks off. And so they have kind of all the back end structure for that, where if you wanted to stay at your job, but maybe it was a 6-month leave, it gets a little bit dicier and a little bit more logistically complicated. Not that it's not possible, like there's some workarounds, but it's a little bit trickier. So if you love your job, I would suggest starting with 1 to 3 months and negotiating that off. And a lot of people, I've had so many clients that are like, oh, but you don't understand my job. Like, there's absolutely no way, either because like nobody ever gets time off. We don't have like a personal leave policy, or one that I love, I'm way too important. I'm way too important to leave. No one else knows how to do my job. The whole company would fall apart if I left. I am like the critical cog in this wheel. And so it becomes a matter of this negotiation of, if the alternative is you leaving, how do you make your leave of absence cheaper, simpler, and easier? The easiest option is just to give you a month off versus replacing you. I spoke at an event and there was, I think he was a CFO. He was like, there's no way I could get a month off. Like, literally no one else does what I do. There's not like a team of people that do my job. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. If you left, how long would it take to replace you? And he goes, oh, this is a tough position to fill. It'll probably take 6 months. And I'm like, yeah. And then how long would it take to train that person to where they could reasonably perform, hopefully at your level? Maybe not, but fingers crossed. And he's like, yeah, that's probably another 6 months. And I'm like, okay, so either the company could underperform for a year or they could give you a month off. Which one's easier for them? Which one's cheaper for them? Which one's more simple? And he was like, oh, yeah, maybe I could get a month off.
Well, it is so true. We have a whole bunch of head trash. And my thing is, look, if you had a major medical issue and you had to have a month off, they'd figure it out and they'd have no notice. Hey, you had a heart attack or a stroke or something, you need some time. They'd figure it out. But what we're really saying is maybe if they figure it out in advance, we can prevent some of these negative things. And some people worry, well, then they'll know how to do my job without me. Well, reality check is if they can do your job without you, you probably shouldn't be doing it anyway. I mean, that's where AI is going to take your job anyway. So then maybe it's a career change for you. But people go, well, I'll even ask people, like, do you have paid time off? Like, yeah, I have like 6 weeks saved up. I'm like, cool, then take it. Like, I can't. I'm like, oh, yes, you can. And it's just that head trash.
A lot of mindsets that I think are kind of passed down to us and we absorb. And it's one of the things I deal with in the book is, what is that internal narrative? What are those fears? What are your hesitations? Because I've done this. I've done one-on-one coaching. I've done group coaching. I have heard every concern, every fear, every reason why people think it won't work, and had to work through that. And one of that is this mindset of like, well, if I take time off, like people, what if they think that I'm lazy, or what if they think I'm like not motivated or not invested in my career? Like, and I'm like, the reality is people who take sabbaticals are highly motivated, super organized, great planners. They're creative, they're visionaries, and they're bold. They have the courage to do this thing. It's simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy to pull off, which is why most people don't do it. And you have to kind of reframe that of, this is an exceptional thing that I'm doing, and other people will see that. In the book, I use a metaphor because I played basketball in high school, of people who take half times. Everyone takes the halftime. The most committed players to the game take the halftime. The most dedicated, the most motivated, the most hardworking players take the halftime because it's essential. That's where you regroup, you refocus, you reimagine what can happen in the second half of the game. Taking the halftime doesn't mean that you don't care about winning. It means you're very committed to winning and you're willing to take these breaks to give you the best chance at that.
Yeah. And I think the hard part is, it's just like a societal push that says you need to like go and put your nose to the grindstone and work hard and like just burn out. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a great answer. Like, but there are those expectations, whether they are, I always kind of joke about it as, whose voice in your head saying you got to do that. But there is that pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's from our family of origin. Like that's something you really have to look at. The tool that helps me the most is, sometimes these stories that we absorbed worked really well. Maybe they worked for us in the past. Maybe they worked for our parents. Maybe they worked for our grandparents. And it was the path to success. And to say kind of like almost to that story, like, thank you so much. Like that was very useful. That work hard, that grind, that 80 hours a week, it got me to where I'm here now, but it's not going to take me where I want to go next. And so like, I appreciate that story. And I appreciate that it worked for you. I need a new one now if I want to build the life in kind of this directionality. And that's an internal work of like, I'm going to let go of the things that maybe served me or my family or my community, and I'm going to adopt something different.
And by the way, I'm 100% behind that. And I tell clients that all the time. And then they'll go, yeah, but my mom does not understand I'm taking 2 months off of work, which doesn't matter what age you are. I've had people in their 50s and their mom still doesn't understand it, but like there is still that kind of guilt, whether it's put on by you or others, or literally mom going, you did it wrong because you're taking time off.
Yes. It was funny when I was writing the book, I put in a section about like emotional boundaries, and my editor's like, this is really great, but like could we make it shorter? Could we make it like one paragraph? Because it was like 6 paragraphs. And I'm like, oh, nay. Like, you don't even understand how big of a challenge this is. I need more than 5 sentences to actually make a difference in this, because it is such a huge challenge of how do we have those emotional boundaries? How do we say, like, I know you're thinking and feeling that certain way, and that's okay for you to think and feel that. And I get to think and feel a different way. Like, we are not one person. You can be confused and I can have clarity. You can be upset and I can be happy. You don't have to feel the way I'm feeling, because sometimes there is, especially with like people pleasers, there is this temptation to like live by committee. Like, I have to sell this idea to everyone before I'm allowed to do it. And the reality is, this vision that you have was given to you. It wasn't given to your whole social circle. It was given to you. And there's a whole bunch of people that won't see something until it's done. Before it is materialized in front of them, like, especially like in construction is really easy. They can look at the blueprints. They can see the plans. They can't really imagine what it would be like to be in the house until the house is finished. And so there's a bunch of people that are like, I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if that's going to work out. And it'll only be after you finish this mini retirement and have a cool new job that they were like, wow, that was a really good idea, actually. Like, you guys did so many amazing things. I saw the pictures. Like, you seem so rested. You have this great job. Like, good on you. It will only happen after it's done. So if you're waiting for the committee, if you're trying to sell everyone on this, like, you might wait a long time.
Hey, Child Free Wealth listeners, it's Bree. If you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, be sure to get on it, where each week we send out information regarding what's going on in the world of child-free life and finances. You can sign up by finding the link in our description.
And some of that committee really does not want you to do it because then they could do it. Like you get this point where it's like, oh, well, if you could achieve it, so could I. And then like their own belief system is challenged.
Yeah, there was one point, not to call my editor out too much, but he was like, oh, this feels a little harsh. Like, should we? And he's also British. So he's like, should we soften this a little bit? But I talked about how sometimes people confuse you for them. They kind of confuse the pronouns, you. And I'm like, just clarify that. If they're like, well, you should be really worried about, like, what if you run out of money and you should be really worried, like, can you find another job? Just be like, I understand that you would be worried about running out of money. I've actually done a lot of planning, and I get that you would be concerned about finding another job. But I've done a lot of networking and planning for this, so I think I'm going to be okay. Like, just if they have those fears, like, don't let them project them on you. Don't let their fears become yours. Let them keep their own fears.
Well, and it's okay to see the world in a different lens. I mean, I've been having this discussion with one of my colleagues of working hard versus working smart.
Yeah.
So I've always been a work smart person. They're a work hard person. And I'm like, I get where you're coming from. That's not the way my brain works. And I was like, if I come up with the same solution and I work smart at it and I don't have to work hard, is that okay? And I asked them that question. They were like, their brain locked up. They're like, that's not possible. And that's just reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking about mini retirements. We're really talking about how do you find that balance? And we also, let's be real, there's some generational differences. Could I see a baby boomer embracing the retire often concept and like as a one boomer? Maybe, but as an overall generation, I don't know. I mean, how do you see it by generation?
There are strong cultural assumptions. And there again, if you're 60 or 70, what worked for you in your career? What worked for your parents? What worked for your grandparents? Of course, you're going to carry that. That still works. And some people are willing to say, well, actually, the world's changed and maybe we need to change with it. I use even the example of my parents. I grew up in the 90s. When my parents were working in the 90s, we didn't have email. We didn't have internet. There were no cell phones. They came home from work and literally there was no work done. There were no employers calling. There was no one touching base. There were no emergencies. We went on vacation and we were like off the grid for a week and nobody thought anything of it. This wasn't a radical thing or a weird thing or like, oh, I'm going to be blackout. Like this is a crisis. No, like that was just normal. And now work is pervasive. It's everywhere. Like we have this constant contact. And if someone says, hey, I'm going to be gone for a week and like you literally can't get a hold of me, everyone's like, whoa, wait, what do you mean? So it's different now. And we need to find, because we don't have that same kind of work-life balance, because society is different, we need to find a new way to create that. And I think mini retirements are a great opportunity to kind of recalibrate and have more separation from work. Because for a lot of people, you take a 4-day weekend and you're still thinking about work. You're still looking at your emails. Like you're still kind of mentally and emotionally there, which is one of the reasons I say a month, because something happens around week 2, week 3, where people really start to mentally and emotionally disconnect and be more present in their life, be more present with the people around them, be more present in their body, in the activities that they're doing, in a way that it's really tough when we're kind of in this momentum of work.
That's fair. I think there's also a reality check that you have to have a certain level of towards financial independence in order to be able to do this. I had somebody last night ask me a question and they said, hey, I'm kind of hating my job. I know I need to change. How much money do I have to save up before I can quit it, find a sabbatical, and do the thing? And the discussion was, look, if you are barely making ends meet, you're living on rent and ramen, you're not going to be able to afford this. So you do have to do some financial planning. I mean, how do you look at it?
So I started my career not earning a ton of money, and my spouse at the time didn't either, which is part of the reason we decided to do mini retirements, because I was like, yeah, we're never retiring early. Like this is the only way to do this. But I've seen people do mini retirements on every budget. And so I don't think you necessarily have to have a high income by any means. It just takes a little bit of thought and planning. Like I was in a medical waiting room, and there was a receptionist there, and she was like, I don't know, she was over the moon. She was just giddy and bubbly with excitement. And she's telling everyone, all the people who were checking in, that she had just come back from a month in Peru. She was probably 22, 23, maybe 24. I live in Montana. She had never been on a plane before. She had never left the state of Montana, and she took a month off and went to Peru for her very first, vacation. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what was this life? And she's like, it was life-changing. I've never experienced anything like that. And she's like, I didn't even go to the cities. I went into the jungle. And I'm thinking this is like a Paddington Bear adventure. You're in the deepest, darkest jungles of Peru as someone who's never left Montana. But she was probably making $14 an hour. But here's the thing, that trip, that month off, let's say her monthly income is $2,000. So she had to save up that $2,000 to replace that, 'cause she probably didn't get it paid. But the whole trip was probably maybe $3,000. I don't think it's very expensive in the jungles of Peru. So she's got a flight there, a little bit of food. That's something that with intention, she probably could have done some babysitting on the weekend. She could have probably done some dog sitting, made a couple $100. If she made an extra $300 a month, she would have saved up for that in 2 years. So I think if you have to have that little bit of extra income and make those small trade-offs or add some income, but it doesn't have to be expensive. And you don't have to I have clients, because I work in the FI community, that I would say average net worth, $500,000 to $8 million, somewhere in there. And it's so funny to talk to someone with $2 million who's like, oh, there's no way I could take time off. Oh, there's no way I can afford this. I'm not a FI yet. And I'm just like, dude, you got $2 million and you can't take a month off. You've created all of this freedom and you have no access to it, at least in your own mind.
Hey, listeners, like what you're hearing? Don't miss a thing. Sign up for the Child Free Wealth newsletter for weekly tips, tools, and podcast updates. Head to childfreewealth.com/newsletter to get on the list.
Oh, that's so common, unfortunately. I'll talk to clients there's no way I could ever. And I'm like, you got more money you know what to do with. Okay. And it's just because I'm looking at it unemotionally. I think the offset is, look, if a client comes to me and says, hey, I'm going to put my mini retirement on a credit card, I'm going to, yeah, no. You do have to do some planning around it.
Yeah. The other thing is, though, is if you need to be financially creative, I'm kind of a worst case scenario planner, but people do this really affordably. If you can rent out your place for $2,000 a month and you want to go travel for 3 months, just rent out your place while you're gone. And that could massively offset this. I think there is this misconception of, oh, if I'm going to go travel, I need $80,000. You don't need $80,000. If you rent out your place and that covers all of, even if you don't make money technically, it just covers all the costs while you're gone, and you do a road trip in your car or your pop-up camper, you might spend $4,000 or $5,000. It doesn't have to be an enormous amount of money. And honestly, the book's called Retire Often. Instead of take one massive, incredible mini retirement during your life, do this frequently. So the first ones can be short. They can be affordable, front load the more affordable options while you get the hang of it, while you practice and you get better at it, and then save the more elaborate, expensive ones till you're further in your financial journey.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to do it. One of my clients, what they ended up doing was they were on one of those apps like Trusted House Sitter. I don't know which one they were using particularly. And they went and dog sat for people for a week here, week here, week here. Their cost was essentially nothing. It was their food and a little bit of gas. And they got to stay in these really cool places and hang out with people's cool pets.
Yep.
So if they can only take one thing away from the book, what would it be?
It's possible. But what about this? I have this fear. I have this concern. Like, how am I going to find another job? What about healthcare? After you read the book, you go, oh, yeah. I mean, actually, why not? Like, why wouldn't I do this? Like, this is the most logical, rational, useful tool to incorporate in my life planning. And so I hope after they read it, not only are they like inspired to do it, but they see there's not really any reason not to.
That's fair. So where can they find you and where can they find the book?
The book is everywhere. It's called Retire Often, so retireoften.com. You can find me, and on social media, I'm at Jillian Johnsrud.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Child Free Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.